strength training for runners. And I just need to mute this really quick. I'm getting some feedback. Here we go. So we're talking about strength training for runners. I am Dr. Morgan Rodriguez. I am a PT. I studied at Texas State. That's where I got my doctorate. And then I have a fellowship in orthopedic manual physical therapy. I specialize in strength training and injury prevention in runners. And personally, I was a collegiate swimmer. I love to lift weights, and I'm a self-proclaimed meathead marathoner. That's a picture of me running the Austin Full Marathon last year in 2025. And so I know firsthand what it takes to be able to train injury-free for multiple marathons and run year-round with health and performance goals in mind. So without further ado, we're going to jump in. These are just a few pictures of our clinic. We're located in Pflugerville, Texas, just outside of Austin. And we have 3 PTs. That's myself working with my husband, actually, who's been training for a marathon. And then Dr. Evan is up in the left-hand corner working on some ankle mobility. And Dr. Magda is doing some strength work. So we're a pretty active crowd. And tonight we have lots to talk about. We are going to cover why do runners need to do strength training? What kind of strength training is optimal for runners? The problem with heavy strength training. When should you do your strength work? The 7 key running muscle groups, how many sets and reps, how long of a workout, and we're going to have a little active portion where we go over some beginner strength for runners exercises, and then we'll do a Q&A. And so if you have questions or comments, please leave a comment even while we're going through it. And then I will take some time at the end to read through the comments and answer questions. So don't feel like you have to save it till the end. Feel free to drop it in the chat and leave a comment. And then as far as the active portion, you really don't need any equipment. So if you weren't prepared for that, it can all be body weight. You'll just need a chair or a couch or bench will work. And if you have some dumbbells handy, you could grab them. But once again, it's really more of just like a preview application versus a full workout. So just so you are prepared, let's jump right in. Why do runners need to do strength training? Running generates 3 to 5 times your body weight in ground reaction forces. What does that mean? So for easy math, like if you weigh 150 pounds, multiply that by 3, that's over 600 pounds in ground reaction forces on your muscles, joint, and tendons when you land. So we're essentially doing little single leg hops over and over and over for the period of anywhere from 3 miles to 26 miles or an ultra marathon. That's a lot of load and force on our tissues. So we need heavy strength training so that way we can load our legs effectively to meet the demand of our running goals. Strength training can help prevent running injuries and improve performance. And ultimately, most of us are probably on this webinar tonight because we're curious about what does strength training look like for running, and maybe you're finding problems that are getting in the way of you being able to run pain-free, and you've heard that strength training is an answer. So we're going to unpack this a lot more, but it's super important. And truthfully, most of the runners I meet are dealing with a problem, dealing with an injury that's getting in the way of them running the way they want to run. And strength training is usually the missing component. So super relevant. Here are just a couple scenarios for you, right? Right now, you might currently be running injury-free. Maybe you're training for something. Maybe you're just running for pleasure for your workout. And then you also might be running and you have an injury. Maybe you're working around knee pain or back pain or an ankle injury. You're still running, but it's stressful. Maybe you have a race coming up. You're worried about it. Or you're just not able to perform the way you want to on runs because of the injury. And then you also might not be running right now due to an injury, right? Or maybe a previous injury and you're ready to get back, but you're not sure if you're ready for it. Then we have strength training on the other side. You might not be doing any strength training at all right now. That's not uncommon. A lot of runners just want to run until they need something else to supplement it. You might be doing some strength training. Maybe you're doing something on an app like the Peloton app, or maybe you're going to a group class at the gym or at the Y. With these sort of generic strength classes or app-based programs, typically we see that there are more body weight movements than heavy strength exercises, and there might be more double leg exercises versus single leg movements, and that's a big opportunity to bridge the gap. And then they might not include lateral movements, or we often find that people aren't loading their calf muscles even though they're doing some strength work. And we also have to acknowledge movement errors, because you might fall into the category of, I'm running and I have an injury and I'm working around it and I'm doing strength training, but I still have an injury. So then we need to look at, well, what's the quality of the strength training? Is it enough load? Is it enough time per week? Is the form correct? Are you actually feeling it in the right places? Or are you doing the strength work in a way that actually feeds into the injury and the issue, right? So there's lots of room for error. Any strength training, there's a philosophy of like some is better than none. And absolutely, if it's working for you, right? But if you're doing strength training and you're still having problems, then there's something to talk about. We screened out a runner last year who, when I got on the phone with her, she's like, Morgan, I'm going to the gym 4 to 5 times a week. I'm there for an hour. I'm doing all my strength exercises. I've been doing it for a year, and I still cannot run more than 12 miles per week without a problem. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like 4 to 5 hours of strength training at the gym. Like, first of all, bravo. How do you have time for it? And also, what are you doing there? Like, you should be super, super strong. What's the missing piece, right? Why is all the strength training and the time you're spending in the gym not translating to pain-free running? Well, it turns out that her form was a really big issue. She was using her lower back on things. Her knees were diving in. She was putting stress on the areas that were becoming problematic with her runs during her strength work. She also didn't have a good idea of how heavy or how challenging the exercises needed to be. And her program wasn't as well rounded to address all the muscles that needed to get stronger to run without pain. Fast forward 6 months, she's running. She's still having some aches and pains, but she's back to running, and her strength training is significantly less time consuming, which is giving her more time for recovery and just enjoying her running, walking, and her other activities. So we have to consider, like, is there a disconnect like that? Or maybe it is working for you, right? Or maybe you have a performance goal and you're on the webinar because you want to learn, like, how could I do strength training better to support my running goal? And then last but not least, you might be doing a personalized strength program. Maybe you are, oh gosh, I'm sorry. I lost it. Here we go. Maybe you're already doing a personalized strength program that a PT built for you, or a personal trainer is working with you. And this personalized program is not just a cookie cutter gym class. It's actually taking your past and your current injuries into account. It's primarily single leg, and it has progressive loading, which means that it's progressively getting harder in terms of the type of movements, the type of exercises, and the weight you're adding. And it's also multi-directional. Running, you're just running forward, right? So our training needs to incorporate things that are similar to running, but we also need to move laterally and rotationally to have a well-rounded strength program that can be resilient for our running goals. So take a minute and just kind of think, like, what category do you fall into? What are your opportunities? And that'll help guide us through the rest of tonight's presentation. What kind of strength training is optimal for runners? 2 days a week of heavy single leg strength training with weights for key running muscles. That's it. 2 days. That's as little as we need. It needs to be single leg focused with added weight for key running muscles. We are not going to unpack all of that sentence in the subsequent slides, but that just kind of gives you that overview. Now, you could do more. You could do 3 days if you're not training for a race, but we like to be realistic. When you're in the thick of training for a half marathon, a 10K, a full, an ultra, you're going to spend so much time running, and we still need to have good recovery, that 3 full days of strength training may be unrealistic. It may be ambitious. And often we find that in the thick of training, when mileage goes up, the first thing that people cut out is the strength training. And so 2 days a week with as little as 30 to 40 minutes per workout is very efficient. It's very doable to prevent injuries. And as long as the strength program is efficient, right? If it's just kind of generic, it's not really targeting your goals or your body or challenging you, then that may not cut it, right? You may still develop an injury. But if it's unique and customized to you, then it can be very effective. What's the problem with heavy strength training? The problem with heavy strength training is we need more guidance and training to do it well. None of us came out of the womb lifting heavy weights, and some of us have had more athletic or fitness experiences than others. And so we may, feel more confident or less confident with it, right? It can be intimidating. You might be thinking, like, yeah, Dr. Morgan, it makes sense. I should get stronger for my running, but I don't want to hurt myself, or I don't want to get too big or too muscular, or maybe I feel intimidated in a gym setting, or when I did lunges, I hurt myself and then I couldn't run, so I just don't do lunges anymore. Or you're not sure what you should be doing, right? It can be intimidating, and that's kind of the whole goal of this webinar, is to just demystify it and make heavy strength training more accessible to you and specifically to your goals with running, because this is going to be a very different conversation for you compared to someone who's doing Olympic weightlifting with a barbell, or someone who is training for a hike, this summer in Yosemite. So we want to make it specific, but we totally acknowledge there are some barriers to being able to incorporate this. The solution is to set yourself up for success with heavy strength training for running. This includes a couple of things. One, we need to meet you where you're at, and we need to set clear expectations. If you have past injuries or current injuries that you're dealing with right now, we have to factor that in when we are working on heavy strength training. For example, if you're dealing with active knee pain with running or just in life, then doing heavy squats and lunges might not be realistic right now. We may need to build up strength and resilience with other movements so that you can do heavy squats and lunges. And so it's going to look different for everybody. If you're healthy right now, you're already doing squats, then adding lunges in may be very feasible. And what's your experience with strength training, right? If you've never touched a dumbbell or you've never done any formal leg strengthening, then we're going to have to start at a different point than someone who, has done squats, done lunges, done deadlifts, maybe is familiar in a gym setting. Maybe you did sports in college or your youth and it's familiar. It's just been a minute. We also need to consider your time frame, right? Do you have a race in 3 weeks, right? You'd be surprised how many runners I meet where it's like the SOS 3 weeks out, or is it 6 weeks from now? Our time frame is very important. For example, I have someone who I think signed up for this webinar who is going to run the Austin Full Marathon next February in 2027. And so it's almost a year away. And that is like my ideal situation. It's a first-time marathoner, never run a marathon. Let's have a huge timeline, because not only do we need to build up the running base for the marathon, but we need to build up the strength base. So in that situation, I would recommend we spend the next 3 to 6 months just building up single leg strength. And so that might look like 3 strength workouts a week right now, and maybe a few runs in between. But then in that sort of 16-week buildup to the Austin Marathon in February, that's when we would pull back. We would just do strength twice a week, still heavy, still challenging. But that's when we're going to see, okay, these are really our opportunities to build strength and then pull back and maintain strength while training for the race. So that's a really good example. Or maybe you're in the middle of a race right now and you're like, I just need to do the bare minimum so that I can run pain-free. And that's totally okay. But after this race, let's make a game plan and build up more strength capacity so that your next training cycle goes better. We also need to consider our access to equipment or lack thereof, right? Like if you don't have any weights, then we've got to get creative, or we've got to invest in some or join a gym. What's your schedule like, right? What does work like? Family, schedules, kids, all of those things have to be factored in. We'll go over the key running muscles in a couple of slides. And then what's your exercise form, right? If the form, I have this motto with some of my runners, sloppy strength work doesn't do much for anybody, right? Like we need to do it really well. It needs to be high quality, and you need to feel the work in the right places. And then of course, if you're struggling with an injury and it's not resolving on your own, Dr. Google and Dr. Instagram aren't making it happen, then that's when you need to seek out help from a physical therapist, physio, personal trainer, digital course, something to give you more guidance. And I love this picture because this gentleman in the blue shirt, he is one of our absolute favorite clients, and he's working with Dr. Magda on calf strength using a Smith machine. And he has a really good story. I met him a couple years ago, and he was lifting weights, and he'd had a previous ankle fracture, and he had kind of persistent pain. It was 10 years prior, and he was just working out around it, having pain every day, limited on his squats and his lunges, not running at all in the workouts because it hurt. And we worked together for a long time, and we've gotten to the point where he has gotten so much stronger. He's doing his workouts with more weight. He's lunging, he's squatting with better mobility and better form. And at the beginning of 2026, he started a challenge where he's trying to run 1 mile every day. He's in his 60s. He's not a runner. But he is slowly becoming one. And I low-key have a little 5K goal for him. But it's so cool because that wouldn't have been possible if he hadn't taken the time to really learn what are the things he needs to address with that old ankle injury and what are the things he needs to do on a regular basis to keep it moving well. So that is a cool win. All right, moving on. Strength training around races and injuries. We touched on this a little bit, but are you training for something now? Are you currently hurt? It can be helpful if you're not currently training for something to build up your strength reserves in the off season, right? You have a little more time. You can shoot for 2 to 4 times a week with the heavy strength training. This will help improve your performance and help prevent injuries. Whereas when you're training for a race, 2 times a week has to happen as little as 30 minutes, and it needs to be effective and hard. Because it's hard to improve single leg strength and running performance simultaneously, right? It's really hard to have running in the driver's seat and strength in the driver's seat. So leading up to before you start your race prep, it's very helpful to put strength in the driver's seat, running in the passenger seat, or even for you right now, you might be thinking running is in the trunk. Like I need to find it. But then when we are training, we can move our strength goal to the passenger seat. It's like, let's just maintain all this strength we built up. We don't want to lose it. And we want it to help sustain the demands of running. What equipment do you have access to, right? Optimal strength exercises for runners need to incorporate weights because it's going to be hard. Body weight is not enough. Now, if you're like, well, I've never done any strength training, body weight will be plenty in the beginning, but then we'll need to progress. And maybe right now it's just not feasible. Maybe you don't have access to a full gym and you've got some weights at home and you've got that kettlebell and you've got a few dumbbells. We can make it work. We can be strategic with single leg exercises and rep schemes that are challenging. But at a certain point, you need to add weight to load your legs more similarly to running. Remember, if you're 150 pounds, that's up to 600 pounds of ground reaction forces. So we need to challenge you, okay? When should you do your strength work? We need up to 48 hours to recover from strength exercises, whereas we only need a few hours to recover from endurance exercise like running. Let's unpack that a little bit. That means that if you do a heavy strength workout, you're going to need a full 2 days to recover from it, whereas a run, you could run in the morning and a few hours later, your legs have recovered from the run. This is super helpful to know when we're programming your strength work. One of the concerns I get from runners is that if they start doing harder strength work, it's going to impact their recovery and their performance on their runs. It's actually going to do the opposite. It's going to help you perform better on your runs. But I totally understand it. You're like, well, I already get sore for my runs. I want to make sure that this doesn't make it worse. We just need to be strategic with where we program it in your week. We recommend that you do your strength work 2 days before your long run so you have time to recover. So for example, if your long run is on Saturday, you could do your strength workout on Thursday or Friday, and then you have plenty of time to recover before the long run. We don't recommend doing your long run and your strength workout on the same day. There are some philosophies in the running community about keep the hard days hard, and that's typically coming from running coaches. And I totally appreciate the viewpoint, like make your really intense days intense. However, as a physical therapist and a strength coach, I find that when you try to keep your hard days hard, runners typically prioritize the run, and then the strength work gets whatever's left over. And so instead, I prefer to put the strength work on an off day from running or an easy day from running, like just an easy 3 to 4 miles or a shakeout run, because then you can really focus your energy on quality strength work that will then carry over to your harder run days, like your speed work and your long run and your medium long run. You can do strength and run on the same day, but ideally, like I said, you're pairing it with one of your easy runs, okay? Here's kind of an example. Don't get overwhelmed. It's a lot, but I wanted to give you guys examples for different situations. So up here at the top, we can see that this would be if you're running 4 times a week and you're taking 1 day off. We could put your strength workout on a Monday and a Thursday. So there's your 2 strength workouts. And then that gives you 2 days to recover before your long run on Saturday. Sunday's a recovery. And then we just have your medium long run here and your speed work on Wednesday and an easy run. And so you basically have 1 workout every day. You have a complete rest day on Sunday. And we've strategically put the strength work on Monday and Thursday. So you'll have recovered from Saturday's long run. You can hit strength really hard at the beginning of the week, and then you can get your hard runs in, then another strength workout, easy run to recover, long run. It's also nice because if you're a runner who really prefers running and strength workout is like, ugh, I just have to do it. It's like Brussels sprouts. I'm going to just do it. Then doing it on a Monday is nice because you can get one right out of the way in the beginning of the week. You feel fresh, you're motivated, check it off the list, and then get a second one. If we're not getting it in until like Wednesday or Thursday, we're running out of time. We're trying to get our runs in, and all of a sudden you might be playing catch up. And then if we're adding another run, say you train 5 days a week, all we've done is you have two options. If you still want to have a full day off, you stack one of your strength workouts with an easy run. Or if you want to do something every day, you could just do your easy run on that Sunday as a shakeout after the long run. And some of this is going to be dependent on your schedule, your lifestyle, kids, work, etc. So we have to take that into account. And of course, if the days don't match your schedule, we'll shift it. But we are still kind of adhering to like the 48-hour recovery between strength and the long run. As far as the order, like if you double up with a strength workout and easy run, it really depends on you. So whichever one is hardest for you, I recommend doing that one first. I'm a meathead marathoner. The run is the harder part for me. I love to lift weights. So I do better doing my run and then doing my workout. But that being said, sometimes I actually feel better on the run once I turn some muscles on. So for me, it kind of depends on my mood. If you love running and you hate strength training, do the strength workout first to just check it off the list, and then do the run as like your reward. Okay. And because it's just a nice, easy run, it's fine to pair those together, but we just don't want to sacrifice the quality and the effort on the strength and prioritize the runs, because then that's what leads to us having insufficient strength to do our training runs. And then, of course, if we're adding more runs, it just means we're going to have to stack them on the strength workout or potentially not have a day off, especially if you're running every day, right? So this is just a little idea so that you can picture how would I plan my week like this, right? And I certainly have folks who spread it out. So for example, a strength workout and an easy run, maybe you're doing the run in the morning, strength at night. Maybe you're doing the back-to-back. This morning, I did a heavy strength workout and then I did an easy 3 miles. It just works best with my schedule to do it that way. And I'm consistent with it, but we just have to meet you where you're at. All right, moving on. 7 key running muscle groups. So we've got core. Those are going to be our abdominals. Glutes, that's our butt muscles. And you can see here in this picture, they're highlighted. Hamstrings, that's back of the thigh. Hamstrings make us fast, which is fun when we run. Our quadriceps here in the front, super important when you're running downhill. If you know, you know, right? Adductors, that's going to be inner thigh muscles here. Very important for hip and knee support. They also help you with speed, and they're severely undertrained. Most of the runners I test in the clinic, their adductors are underperforming. So that's a really big one. Kind of asterisk that in your mind. If you're currently doing strength work, are you hitting the adductors or inner thighs? And then we have 2 calf muscles, your gastroc and your soleus. Gastrocnemius is going to be the round heads here at the top. It's the outermost calf muscle. So when you're upright standing. Soleus works more. It's wider and thicker than gastroc, and it lives underneath it. So it's closer to the bone. Both are super important. They're your power, your propulsion, and they help you absorb shock. So 7 key running muscle groups is like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. That's a lot of exercises. I have good news, team. We can be efficient. Certain exercises target some of those muscle groups together. So we just took 7 exercises. I've condensed it down to 4 exercises that hit all of those muscles. For example, this is a picture of me doing a rear foot elevated split squat. I have dumbbells, and because my foot is up, it puts more work into that front leg, and it's more of a single leg exercise. This is better than a full single leg squat because balance gets in the way and you can't go up as heavy. Whereas if I have a little kickstand on the box, then I can focus more on adding weight and getting leg strength. That's going to target your glutes, your hamstrings, and your quads. An adductor plank. So my inner thigh is holding me up on the box with my top leg, and then I'm lifting my bottom leg up and down. So now that inner thigh on the bottom leg is working. It's also a ton of core work. So I'm getting core and inner thigh adductors together. These are toe walks. Toe walks, when you do them well, will target your gastrocnemius. That's the calf muscle that works when the knee is straight. It's also going to target your glutes and your core when you do it well, right? If you do it sloppy, then you may not feel it in any of those places. And that goes for all of these exercises, right? And then last but not least, the sneaky lunge with the dumbbell weave, that targets the glutes, the quads, the soleus. And because the knee is bent, that soleus calf muscle gets to work more. In this position, I'm holding a calf raise on both feet, and then I'm weaving that dumbbell around the front leg. And you will have access to these videos. So don't stress about that. But this is a really good example of, you could set a timer for 30 minutes. You could rotate through these 4 exercises and just hit 6 to 8 reps at each. And once 30 minutes hits, then you're done. It's probably, depending on how long it takes you to set it up and get comfortable with the movements, probably going to be maybe 4 to 6 rounds, depending on how fast you go through it. And maybe you're looking at this and you're like, well, that's great, but I don't feel ready for it. If it's too hard, let's take it down a notch. Let's make it easier. Still the same muscle groups. This is a reverse lunge. So notice my back foot is just on the floor. It's not elevated. So it means there's going to be a little less weight on that front leg, and it's going to be a little bit easier to balance. So if you've never done a split squat, reverse lunges are a really nice starting point. And then the adductor plank, that takes quite a bit of core strength just to get started with. And so a lateral lunge where we step to the side can also load the inner thigh or the adductors. But it's a little bit easier to set up, easier to start with, and then progress from there. And then, of course, toe walks, we can always take the weights away and just do a body weight. Or if we needed to sub it out for a calf raise, we could do that too. And then instead of sneaky lunges, this is a seated soleus raise. And so it takes some of the balance challenge out of it. And I am just doing seated calf raises with a very heavy kettlebell on my knee. And if you're looking at these and you're like, but I'm progressed, I'm more advanced than that, then let's make it harder. So here I'm doing the split squat, but I've added a barbell. My back foot is up, so it's a lot of weight on the front leg. And I'm able to add more weight to this because it's resting on my back. So my hands won't get tired and be the limiting factor. And so this is a really nice way to progress the split squats. It's definitely an advanced movement. I would not recommend starting with it until you've mastered form on lunges and split squats with dumbbells. And then the adductor plank, we can make it harder by crossing the knee to the opposite elbow and basically doing a little oblique crunch. Smith machine calf raises. So these are basically weighted single leg calf raises using a bar on a Smith machine. You can do this by holding a dumbbell or a kettlebell as well, but it's a little bit more weight than the toe walk, because the toe walk is your body weight on 2 feet plus dumbbells. Now we've gone just to 1 leg, which is going to be more similar to running, and we're loading it across with the bar. Same machine, I can do seated calf raises. And the nice part is I'm not limited by how heavy of a kettlebell I can pick up. And I can do upwards of, 200 pounds on the Smith machine and get in and out of there safely by myself. And the soleus is super strong. We typically recommend starting at around 50% body weight. I'm 160 pounds plus. And so that means I would be starting with 85 pounds on my seated calf raise. And if I can't pick up an 85-pound kettlebell, then I'm going to need to load it in the Smith machine. Or I could stack plates and a weight on top of that. All right. This is a really good slide for you to take a picture of. You are going to get this in an email, but this QR code will take you to an exercise library that has videos that we talked about, and the password is Opal. So feel free to take a pic of that. And then we're going to move on. How many sets and reps? How long of a workout? So we want to shoot for 4 sets of 6 to 8 reps with heavy resistance. It needs to be heavy enough to signal your brain to recruit all of your muscle fibers and nerves to create maximum force in a single contraction. So what it means that it's so challenging that all of your muscles are participating to lift the weight. And it's so hard that you can only get 6 to 8 reps and you're struggling on the last one. It means you won't be able to do 9 to 12 reps. So say you're doing lunges, body weight, and you're like, oh yeah, I could do 20 reps of these, no problem. Then we need to add dumbbells and progressively work up to weights that are so hard that you can only get 6 to 8 reps, right? And so that may be significant. Now, the caveat, of course, is it's going to be subjective to the human doing the lifting. So for example, lunges with 20-pound dumbbells might be heavy for that person, whereas using a barbell with 135 pounds on it for a reverse lunge may be hard for that person, right? So if you're new to strength training, or maybe you're coming back from an injury, the dumbbells may be plenty challenging to do with good form and without pain. Whereas if you're someone like me who has been a long time proponent of strength training and I've worked up to it, I did barbell lunges with 135 the other day for 6 reps and they were hard, but I've progressively worked up to that. So as far as how long of a workout, we mentioned this earlier, if you're loading the muscles enough to make 6 to 8 reps challenging, then a 30 to 40 minute workout just twice a week is sufficient to prevent injuries. Now, you can always invest more energy into it to improve performance, but I'll be very transparent. Most of the runners I work with are coming because they have an injury, or because they don't want to have an injury, or they're training for their first marathon, or maybe they're a serial marathoner and they're just noticing that now as they start to age that things are becoming a problem and they can't get away without doing some strength work. But that being said, I would love to work more with runners who are already healthy, not injured, and just want to improve their performance, because strength training will actually make you faster. And that can influence your PRs and your training. So something to consider. Time to move. We are going to run through a little beginner strength for runners exercise. I wanted to do this live, so that way if you have questions, you can leave a comment and you can just hear some of my language and cueing, and I'll address some common questions as we go through them. I'd love for you to participate. We've already been sitting for a half an hour, so we might as well get a little movement. You don't need any equipment other than a chair. And if you don't have a chair, you could use the edge of your couch or a coffee table. But we're going to go through these, and then we'll come back. I've just got a couple slides after that, and then we'll do questions. So hang tight, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you can see my back. And then we're going to go through these. And so pull out your chair. You'll see I have a bench here. And then we are going to start with the double leg hamstring bridge. And so you're going to be on the ground. You're going to put your feet up, either on your chair, on a bench, on a coffee table, couch. The height is not super important. And the distance, ideally I'm here at 90 degrees. But if we start to do this and it's really hard for you, you can always scooch out further, and that makes it a little bit easier. But that being said, we'll start here and then we can adjust as needed. So my knees are hip width apart. You can have your hands on the ground. You're going to dig your heels down and use your hamstrings to lift up. The hamstrings are the back of the thigh. And then you're going to come down with control. And we're going to do a couple here. My goal is I'm just using the hamstrings, so I don't have to lift up super high. If I go too high, then I'm going to use my lower back, and that's not the hamstring. Our goal is to get our hamstrings stronger for running, so that's what we need to feel on the exercise. Now, if you do 4 or 5 of these, and you're like, yeah, I can do this, this is pretty easy, then I'm going to show you the next level. If that was challenging, then maybe shoot to do like 3 sets of 6 right now. But the next level is staggered. So I'm just going to reach my right leg out and it's resting on the bench. And so it's there for support, but I'm not going to push with it. Now I'll dig my heel down and I'll bridge up. And now my left hamstring has to work a little bit harder on its own. And so I could shoot for 5 to 6 reps here just to get a taste of like, is this easy? Is this too much? If you started to feel strain or discomfort, or maybe strain behind the knee, then I suggest going back to double. If that still feels easy, then you can actually float that right leg, and now we can do single leg, which is definitely more challenging. And if you find that your bench wants to slide, or your chair, then you're probably cheating and pushing it away instead of hooking the bench and pulling up with the hamstring. This is a really good one. I have clients in the clinic every day who come in and are humbled by double leg hamstring bridges. So if that is you, this is a great starting point, and now you already know how you can work up to staggered. So what I recommend is, if double leg was hard, you do 4 sets of 6 to 8 reps, and then if you do that twice a week, it's going to get easier, and then you can work up to staggered, and then you can work up to single leg. And then once you're able to do 4 sets of 6 to 8 reps, single leg hamstring bridges on both sides, Then we're ready for the next challenging hamstring exercise, and I have lots of those. So we want to meet you where you're at. The goal is you feel the work in the muscle, and don't be alarmed if you find one side is different than the other. It would be fine if you were single leg on the left and maybe your problematic side needs to start with staggered. That's totally fine. You're not going to end up crooked. So that's the hamstring bridge. Now we're going to move on to the calf raise. And so you can either hold the back of your chair or you can stand and hold the wall. So I'm going to hold the wall. My feet are hip width apart, and I'm going to just start with a double leg calf raise. And it's really easy to cheat on these. And they're the most underperformed muscle group in the world, I'm convinced. No one's training their calves, and especially a lot of our runners are like, well, Morgan, I use my calves on the run. Isn't that enough? No, it's not enough. We need to train the calf so that it's prepared for the run. So big things we're thinking about is we want to make sure that we push through the big toe as opposed to flaring out and putting pressure on the pinky. So instead, we push through the big toe, come up with control, and then come down with control. I don't want to rock and lift up. Instead, my torso stays still and I push the floor away. Now, if this feels pretty good and you feel like you're not cheating by flaring out or using momentum, then you can put one foot back like a kickstand. And now I'm going to do the work with the left leg. Same rules apply. I'm still pushing through the big toe. I'm not rolling out onto the pinky like that. I'm keeping the weight through the big toe. And I'm not lifting, but rather I'm pushing the ground away. If that's going well, I could float that right leg, and then I can do full single leg. But if you start to notice that you're flaring or maybe you're rotating in, then you might need to work on staggered for a while. And then you can do the same thing on the other side. You could do a double leg one just to make sure it's ready. And if that feels good, then you can progress to the kickstand. And then if that feels good, you can progress to single leg. And same thing as the hamstring bridge, you might just need to start with double leg, 6 to 8 reps, 4 sets, twice a week. And then even as little as like 2 to 3 weeks in, you may feel ready to go to staggered and then single leg. And then after single leg, we add a dumbbell. And then we work on the Smith machine or just a bigger dumbbell. So now we're going to go over the reverse lunge. And I'm going to show you regressions and progressions. And so I mentioned earlier with lunging, a lunge is more of a single leg movement, right? It's going to work my glutes, my quads, my hamstrings, and truthfully a little bit of the calf. If you're dealing with an injury right now, then I suggest you do squats, right? If you have knee pain and you're like, well, my knee hurts with squats, then let's not jump to lunges yet. But it tells me that we have stuff to work on, right? And so if lunges are a problem, we can modify and you can work on squats. And then the goal would be to add weight to the squat. So you could hold a dumbbell in front of your chest, do the squat, and then eventually work up to the lunge. But if you're ready for the lunge, we're going to start in standing. My feet are hip width apart. You can hold on to your hips. I'm going to place 1 foot back, and I'm going to make sure they're still hip width apart. I want to make sure I use my glutes. If I just bend my knee, all the work's in the quad and the knee, and I don't feel my glute as much. So instead, I want to make sure that I hinge forward so I can feel the glute. And then as I come down, now I feel glute, quad, hamstring, and then they all work to come up and return to standing. If the coordination is a problem, you could keep your foot there and you could just lunge in place. That's a totally valid option. From the front, I'm really making sure that everything stays stacked. I don't want to come down into the lunge and have my knee dive in, because then that's training me for when I'm running for that knee to dive in and collapse. That's going to cause problems up or down the chain. So I'm making sure I'm nice and stacked. I hinge and I bend at the knee and the ankle, and then I push to come up. If that's going well, then you can add dumbbells on either side, and you can practice stepping back and then pushing to come up. And if you're like, Morgan, I already do lunges, I'm not impressed, then you can do a split squat. So that same chair or couch that you used for your hamstring bridges, you would just place your foot back behind you. It doesn't matter if the toe is up or the foot is flat, whatever's comfortable, because when we do split squats for running, we need to be more focused on where we're feeling it versus how low we go. So I need to make sure my hip, my knee, and my toe are stacked. I hinge at the hip, and then I bend at the ankle, and then I push forward. Common errors or things I see with other ways of doing the split squat is people stay more upright, and then they just bend the knee, and that's great, but that would translate to me running like this. And instead, we want to run forward, and we want to propel ourselves forward like this, right? And so we need to train our split squat to target all those muscles. Also, if you only feel it in the quad and the knee, then this exercise no longer hits glute 2. So we need to make sure we have that hinge to target the glute. And then I could certainly add weight to this on either side, or it might be challenging enough right now to get 6 to 8 reps. And then maybe next week I have 5-pound dumbbells, and the week after that, 10, and then 12. And you can see how we could start to work up to the heavier weights, okay? I'm gonna come back and we're gonna just chat about my last few slides, and then we will answer questions. So let me pull this up. All right, so this is what we just went through. So that way, if you want to be able to read it, you can see the different levels we talked about on hamstring bridges. Like I said, you're going to get access to these videos, so don't stress about remembering everything. And especially like the calf raise progression, it talks about those. And then this walked through how we made lunges harder or easier, and then a more advanced version. Moving forward, what is next, right? So you can take all this information that we've shared tonight, and you will get a little one-page handout in your email. You can take this information and you can build your own custom strength program, right? I highly recommend you do that. If you're going through all this and you're like, wow, this is more complicated than I thought, or maybe you don't have the bandwidth, or maybe you're dealing with an injury and you're like, I get it, but I'm just not quite sure how to make that more specific for me, then there's 2 big ways that Opal can help support you, especially if you're not located in the Austin area in Texas. We have 2 options. We have remote programming and we have remote movement coaching. Both start with a free discovery call. And even if you're over here where you're like, no, I think I'm going to do it on my own, you're always welcome to book a call. I'll talk with anybody for 15 minutes about their goals, concerns. And so that's a really nice opportunity where we get clear on like, what are your goals? Do you have any injuries? Are you training for a race? How confident do you feel about strength training? And then with remote programming, we'll build you a custom mobility and strength program, and we'll update it monthly, and it's built for you. So it's not like just the Peloton app with these exercises, but we'll actually build it based on your current strength level, your schedule, the equipment you have, what you're preparing for, what your goals are. This is really ideal for someone who's maybe a little more familiar with strength training and they feel good about just like following the videos and the instructions. And maybe they're currently injury-free, you have access to equipment. Whereas if you don't feel like that and you need more guidance, we also have remote movement coaching. We still start with a call. It's totally free just to get clear on like if we're a good fit. And then we'll meet with you live for one-on-one movement coaching sessions. So those are hour-long sessions where we actually cue you over video, like, okay, we're doing the lunges. Do you feel it in your glutes? Is this bothering your knee? Like, here's how we can make an adjustment. Or maybe we need to scale back and do a different exercise, or maybe you're ready for something more. This is a really good fit for someone who maybe is a little more fearful. They've tried it in the past, it hasn't gone well, or they don't have access to a clinic like us near them and they need some remote guidance. Maybe you've been navigating injuries and you're worried about the missing piece and you need some more guidance or live feedback. So those are really good options. And then this is how you can reach us. That's our website. You're welcome to email me at morgan@opalmovementtherapy.com if you have questions. And then feel free to text or call us. That's our office line. And then this QR code, you are welcome to scan that. And that will actually, oh, golly, I'm crushing it with the technology tonight. I'm too excited about the running. And so this QR code will allow you to book that free discovery call. So you're welcome to snag a time with me so that we can chat. And then now we are going to just move into questions. So feel free to drop a comment if you have a question. And that way we can talk through specific examples, questions, things like that. And so feel free just to drop one into the comments. And if not, I hope you enjoyed it. And you'll find in your email that handout with that resource, and you're welcome to email us if you have specific questions that you want to ask via email. So feel free to drop a comment if you want me to chat about something, and if not, then I hope you have a great evening. Let's see. Does strength training change during race or off season? Should I be doing more during off season? Yes, you should take advantage of your off season to basically build up reserves for your strength training. It's also a really good time to work on any specific injuries or vulnerable areas. So for example, with my first marathon, I had an Achilles problem and I had to address it during the training cycle. I was able to run it. But now, anytime I'm in the off season before a race, I am prioritizing more calf and ankle exercises. So that way I basically like fill up my gas tank of like all my good calf strength. And then when race training starts, I'm just maintaining it. So I kind of front load it. And I use the example of like, you want to basically have this big reserve. You're working out 3 times a week. It's very heavy. It's challenging. And then when time with training increases and you need more time to recover, you just do 2 30-minute workouts that are very effective. Good question. All right. And feel free to drop a follow-up if that didn't answer it clearly for you. How do I know what weight is my heavy for strength training? This is such a great question. We also posted a YouTube video directly on this topic yesterday, actually. And so I'll have Natalie drop it into the comments so that you can check it out, but I'll break it down. So your heavy is going to be a weight where you feel like you can only do 6 to 8 reps. The best way to figure this out, let's use squats, for example. So I showed you a squat earlier where I'm holding the dumbbell in front of me. It was 15 pounds. So if you're doing squats with 15 pounds and you feel like, oh, wow, like I can do 15 of these. Like what I recommend, you could do this on your own at another time, is you grab whatever weight you feel comfortable with, try to do 6 or 8. And if you feel like you can keep going, stop, rest, and then go up by 5 pounds. So you grab, let's use the 15, for example, then you go up to 20 pounds. And if you're like, oh, wow, I still got 6 to 8 easily, like I could be going for 10 reps. Then you pause, you rest, and you go up. And so you'd go to the 25 pound, then the 30 pound. And when you get to the point where you've titrated, like, yeah, I can do a 40 pound goblet squat and I can get 6, but it's hard and I struggle to get 7 or 8 and I have good form. That's how you find out what's heavy for you. Now, say you only have dumbbells up to 30 pounds at your house and you do the squats and you're like, well, great, I'm too strong for my dumbbells with squats. Then we just need to pick a more challenging movement. So we would do something like reverse lunges, because reverse lunges puts more weight on one leg because you are in a single leg stance. And then all of a sudden doing reverse lunges with 20, you may only get 6 to 8. So I hope that makes sense, but it really does help to pick the movement and then basically do a little bit of like a titration exercise. And that YouTube video talks about how to do that. And I show examples. So check that out. And then of course, the caveat is heavy is relative, especially if you're dealing with pain or an injury. You can't outlift or out strengthen the pain and the injury. So you going heavier and heavier on lunges and ignoring your knee pain is not positive. So heavy in a pain-free range with you feeling the right muscle groups. So I hope that makes sense. Also, I've been told I have a hip drop. How do I fix that? This is a great question. Since you guys can kind of still see me in the corner, I'm gonna take this off so you can see me bigger. And so a hip drop is pretty common in runners and truthfully in a lot of humans. And we can assess that. If I lift my shirt up, you can kind of appreciate my hips here are level when I'm standing. And then when I stand on one leg, I should have the strength and control to keep it level. If I don't have the strength or control of my hip, then my pelvis will drop. And I'm going to show it from the back because here, when I go from 2 to 1 foot, this butt muscle on the leg I'm standing on should keep me level. But if it doesn't, then I will drop the opposite hip. And so now this hip is not stabilizing. So the cool part is the fix is actually training it. And so when you go to one side, we actually need to activate that, and we may need to do it in pieces. So instead of picking my foot all the way up, I may think about just going up on my heel. And when you do that, you'll feel that butt muscle kick in a little bit. And then we're going to see, okay, can I start to lift that foot without dropping, right? If I go from a little heel lift to this, then I know I missed it. And then that muscle group is called your glute medius, and your hip external rotators are involved. So we would want to bias those muscle groups. And there might be other exercises like side stepping with the band or side planks, single leg movements. So that way we can train it, get it stronger, and then it will carry over. One other example, I just showed you with single leg balance, but if I do a lunge and I keep my hips level, now I'm training that muscle to prevent hip drop. If I don't think about it and this drops, now I'm reinforcing hip drop with my lunge. I hope that made sense. Feel free to drop a follow-up. All right, let's see. Feel free to drop a few more questions. I'm going to hang on here for a few more minutes, but I hope that was helpful. And I think I got one question via text. How can I stop knee buckling, moving in when doing reverse lunges? Okay, how do I stop the knee from buckling in when doing reverse lunges? This is so cool that this is the question I pulled up because it's very similar to what I talked about with the hip drop. So for example, if I'm going to do my reverse lunge and I go to step back, I need to stay stacked. And so we just talked about the hip drop, but when I drop my hip, that dives my knee in. And so that same glute that should be stabilizing, it's not stabilizing, and that's what leads to the knee diving in. And so the big thing would be, we might need, like I'm gonna put this chair off to the side, we might need to set you up with a little support. So if I hold on to something and I start with my feet hip width apart, I'm gonna place my foot back here. And if I put it too narrow, do you see how my knees dive in already? So instead, I'm gonna put it hip width apart. That might already feel weird. And then I'm gonna make sure that I hinge, because that'll help me feel my glute more. And then as I come down, I'm keeping everything nice and stacked. I'm gonna flip around so you can see it. So if I was holding on, I place my foot here, and I'm making sure that I hinge, I stick my hips back, I feel that glute turn on, because if I don't feel it, the knee will buckle in, because the glutes and the back of the hip, they pull the hip and knee out, and the front of the hip pulls the hip and knee in. So if you're doing lunges normally and you see the knee dive in like this, or like this, then it tells me you're overusing the front of the hip and you need more activation of the back of the hip. So some of it is how you're doing it, or giving you some support so that you can do it without cheating and overusing those muscles. I hope I answered that question well for you. Let me see if we have any other questions in here. How many times a week should I do strength? When you're not training, 3 times a week is great, or just realistically, twice a week for 30 minutes, effective, heavy single leg training. And if you want to add an extra day, you can. And especially when you are training for a race, you've got to still get the 2 times a week at 30 minutes. A lot of times when my runners cut the training, the strength work out, that's when they start to have problems or injuries. So we want to really prioritize 2 strength workouts each week. Great question. These are really great info and visuals. Thank you, Bonnie. I'm so glad. I really, I've done this webinar before on this topic, and I had fun kind of adding new visuals and like aids for you. And we will post the recording. So if you feel like you need to see them again, they will be on there. Yep. Awesome. I love it. Well, I'll hang out and see if there are any other questions. But otherwise, this is good. You guys are asking a lot of great things. Checking all the platforms to make sure we don't miss any questions. And since I don't handle silence well, you're always welcome to check out on our website. We have a free resources tab, and there is a folder for running specifically. So that has some other good resources in there, and things you just might find interesting if you liked this webinar. So feel free to check that out as well. You are so welcome, John. Thank you for hopping on. Love it. Glad it was helpful. Feel free to send us requests if you have topics that you want us to teach on. I love it. Well, I'll hang out till 7, so I'll be on here for 3 more minutes. And then if you want to hop off, feel free. Have a wonderful evening. And I just love people who want to take advantage of learning more. So big props to you. And then feel free to reach out if you have questions as you implement some of this stuff.